All right. Call for the municipal board meeting. First order on the agenda is the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'll read our mission statement. Our mission is to graduate all students with high levels of academic and personal achievement, ready for post-secondary excellence, prepared for productive, compassionate citizenship through research-based instruction and a collaborative system of support. Any changes today, Jim? All right. Budget orientation. You can wait till Jim gets these, I guess. It's just a time for budget orientation. Yeah, it's okay. Whenever you're ready, Sherry.
Right. We'll try to be ready. Okay, thank you for coming to our budget committee orientation. Our purpose of our budget is to present the financial plan and estimated expenditures and revenues for a fiscal year. It creates authority to spend public money in accordance to Oregon budget law. And it provides certification of property taxes to the county assessor. The budget process is designed to be a joint effort between the people affected by the budget and the officials responsible for providing the services. All committee members have equal authority and responsibility. Budget law requires each district to designate a budget officer, set up a budget committee, publish a public notice of the budget committee meeting. The budget committee is representing the public in viewing and questioning the budget. There will be opportunity for community members to address both the budget committee and the board before the budget is finalized. The responsibilities are to receive the superintendent's budget message and review the proposed budget, hear and consider public comment, discuss and make changes to the proposed budget as needed, approve the budget, approve the amount or rate of total taxes to be certified by the county assessor, and forward the approved budget to the school board for additional public hearing and adoption. Committee requirements. All meetings are subject to public meeting laws. All budget discussions must be held in public meetings. A quorum, which is 6 for us, must be present to conduct this business. A majority vote is required to take action. The budget committee may request and receive additional information from district staff. Any member of the public may speak. The budget committee may establish time limits and other policies for the public comment period. The proposed budget becomes public as soon as the budget document is released to the budget committee. There's specific requirements of the budget committee, and the first one is an important one to consider. It's important to remember that all budget committee meetings are subject to the requirements of public meeting laws, which means the process must be totally transparent to the public. This is our budget calendar. On May 3rd, we published the notice of the budget committee meeting. May 18th will be our first budget committee meeting, where we will elect officers, receive the budget message, review the proposed budget, and hear public comment. We anticipate the printed budget will be available and online by Friday prior to that Monday meeting. June 1st, second budget committee meeting, where we would approve the budget and set the date for the public hearing by the board, unless a third budget committee meeting is needed. On June 5th, we've had an approval, we will publish the notice of the budget hearing. On June 15th, we'll have a public hearing on the approved budget and the board adoption of the budget, hopefully. June 30th is the final date for adoption of the budget. We have the general fund as the district's main operating fund. Key sources of revenue are local property taxes and funding from the state. The special revenue fund is where grants, reserves, student-by funds, and food service funds, and the district's preschool are accounted for. Sources of funding reflect the specific nature of each of those areas. The debt service fund is primarily funded with property taxes and is used to pay our bond. The general fund is the only one for which there are no restrictions on the use of funds. For all other funds, resources are legally required to be spent on activities which meet the purposes for which the funds were established. Even if money is moved back to the general fund from one of these funds, it must be used for purposes for which the fund was established. Only if the funds are abolished through board resolution can those funds be accessed to support general operations of the district. The debt service fund, is for payment of the principal and interest on the no bonds and is restricted for debt service on outstanding bonds. The state school fund is distributed to a formula developed to provide equal funding to all districts. It's allocated on a per student basis with extra weighting for certain special needs. The 25 through 27 state school fund grant is $11.3 billion. We are going into the second year of the biennium. The funds are to be distributed 49% and 51% over the 2 years of the biennium. This is a look at the first estimate, the only estimate we've received so far for the 26-27 state school fund grant. They form the framework of our budget, and it's an estimate only. Details will change over actually the next few years. They can keep changing these items. The 26-27 local revenue, we're estimating property taxes and in lieu of property taxes from local sources to be a little over $4 million. Common school fund about $138,000, and the county school fund $28,000. The local revenue is estimated to be about $4.2 million. So these amounts are based on the March 2nd estimate, but you will see when the budget comes out, these will have some slight changes based on, this fund is based on estimates we made in January that we sent to the state and they send back down to us. But since then, we've refined our items, and you will see in the budget, the numbers will be slightly different. The formula based on teachers' experience, we have an adjustment that can work for you or against you based on whether your district teachers' experience average, how it compares to the state average. And this is made really to kind of pay more for teachers that have been in the system longer. So you get a little bit more money if your teachers are more experienced. So we're finding ourselves to have a slight deduction. It's negative 0.77. And that is where our teachers are slightly less experienced than the average state. Our transportation grant at the time of this fund was estimated to be about $800,000. The state pays 70% of that. And we pay, the general fund pays the other 30%. So we are estimating to receive about $560,000 for this. They reimburse our eligible transportation costs according to the district costs per ADMR, which is your regular average daily membership, so how many students that you have. We are in the position to be reimbursed at 70%. There's some schools, very few, that have different reimbursement amounts, but we are not in a position to change, so we're expecting 70%. A general purpose grant, the extended, this is average daily membership with waiting, which waits for several things that we will get in a minute, but basically the state will give you the highest of your previous 2 years of ADMW. And we are looking at at this time, we were looking at a slightly smaller ADMW in 26-27 than we had in 25-26. So the 25-26 number would carry forward if that is the higher of the two numbers. And that's meant to smooth out your financing over 2 years. The general purpose grant is your ADMW, and it's a ratio, a funding ratio that the state comes up. So you have your 1,135 ADMW, and then the formula works out to be 44.8075, which is 4,500 plus $25 times our teacher experience ratio. And then funding ratio, which is 2.59, is one that changes all the time in the state, but it does give us an estimate of about 13 million for our total funding. And then of course the local funding will come off of that number.
Can I have questions?
Anytime.
Will you walk me through one more time what each of those numbers represent? 1135 and the rest of the, that number is what?
That is how many students you have, and about, in this formula, it's about 996.
Right?
And then you have weighting, and actually, I do have a slide that will,
Okay, so
Explain
that's
that.
why it's more than the actual students we have.
correct.
Where is 44.8075 from?
Well, that's from the state, so it's, I don't know why it is 4,500 plus $25 times the experience adjustment. It's
Okay.
always been those numbers, and the experience adjustment was at 0.77, for us it was a negative 0.77. So you see that we're getting 44.80 instead of 4,500.
Okay. And then lastly, I won't even try to guess why it carries out, what is that, 10 decimal points?
That is the entire state budget divided by the entire need for all the schools. And it includes, and it's a big long formula, but it's how many students across the state are enrolled, and then it has other carve outs from that, and that's a number that changes a little bit every time we send out an estimate. And I don't know where it really comes from, but that is what they use to find what our school is available to have. So they're saying, okay, you get 13 million. And then we say, oh, but we'll get 4 million out of our own taxes. And then they say, okay, we'll give you 9. So that number rounds up and down, probably within 1 to 200,000 over the year. And you never really know, because it depends on what, because it's on a weighted average. If one school has a lot more high cost students, or one school has, especially a huge school, it can affect that number. Or if their estimates have been, sometimes they're too conservative or not conservative enough in their estimates they do in January, and that number could change. It doesn't change based on us, we're too small.
Well, I think that last one should be a 4, not 3. I'll let it go.
It's awesome. All right, so the total formula revenue, general purpose grant plus the transportation grant turns into 13,747,000. That's our grant minus when you take out your local revenue, it turns into 9,530,000. So that's what we expect the state to pay us over 10 payments for the next year. Though, like you'll see that 4,200,000 has changed a little, and that changes based on property values, our estimate of property values, our history, what percentage are collectible of those. So we have some losses, we have some measure five losses, which is when the assessed value is different than the real value. And so there's a lot of things that go into that, and we don't dial it down in January, or we have dialed it down now. So you'll see some different numbers, but this is what the state gave us based on what we gave them in January. The general purpose grant for extended APMW is $11,615. So that's basically per APMW weighted for every student across the state. That's not really for us. It turns into, 12,000, when you include transportation. So this is the extended APMW comes into place. So if you look at the 25-26, that's a number based on our December count. So it's 947.46. So that's our students with some adjustment for attendance. We are estimating, at this time, we were estimating 945 students for the 26-27 youth. So we get 1 point or 1% of this formula for each of those students. Then you get adjustments for students in English learning. programs because they assume that they're going to take special programs and take a little more money to educate. The IEP students have an adjustment. It only goes up to 11% of our district students, regardless of how many we actually have with IEPs. The students in poverty is an adjustment that gets refigured about in 2 years. Well, it takes about 2 years for them to adjust it down. So and all of these are somewhat mobile numbers, but they help us to determine what we think we're going to get. The small high school correction, that's a number we get for being under 350 students in our schools. That's one of 2 funding sources that we get at a small high school. And as you get closer to 350, that number goes down a little in this formula. So the 2 numbers there, for 26-27, it looks like 1132. For 25-26, it's currently 1135. And so we are able to budget on the 1135 because the state will give us the highest of those 2 numbers. Those numbers do change all the time. In fact, I just got another change for 24-25. And so they're actually taking some money away this year, and that's just, it's a moving target at all times.
Sherry, will you remind me what IEP stands for?
Individual education plan.
Individual.
Okay.
What, sorry,
Individual education plan.
fine. Thank you.
So this chart shows, as of January, how many students we had in K-5, 6, 8, and 9, 12, and what we're projecting for 26-27. And you can see on the last slide, the projection in January was 965, but for budgeting purposes, we've now raised that to 975. These numbers are our roll forward per grade students, and it's an estimation of what we think kindergarten students will come in, and then an estimation of a percentage of the inter-district transfers that we expect. So 975 is kind of conservative, showing the interest that we have in inter-district transfers for this upcoming year so far, but we feel comfortable budgeting on that number.
Question.
Yeah.
The total students here on this one, we're estimating they increased by 10-ish. On the last last slide, the ADM was staying flat, or even down a little bit. What's the difference there?
You mean from this side?
Yeah, the top number. Are those correlated in some way?
They are, the 25-26 will be a kind of, an assessment, an average based on our monthly reports to ODE and where we are in 25-26. The 26-27 number was based on an estimate that we gave the state as of January.
Okay.
And then, since then, we have raised it.
Great to know. Okay. So we could see a benefit if they did. The new estimates were right. It could happen.
And if they, if these numbers change, they will keep adjusting the
Sure,
number 26 and.
Who's the final number? When do they start listing?
I just a week ago got what they think is the last estimate for 24-25.
For 24-25?
Correct. And so they just send you out saying, here's our new estimate, and this is how much money we're giving or taking away. And that's, all of these numbers are in flux because the poverty number especially, because they do it's I don't know, say safety or something, but it's a statewide check of poverty and rating how many students in our district are in that poverty level. And so that takes a good year before they finalize that. So additional state funding, we, beyond the state school grant, which, in the projection of March 2nd was about 9.5 million. We are still projecting a $58,000 small high school grant, and the estimate has been updated relatively recently, but it's not final yet. And then the high cost disability might be 70,000. So that's all just estimated. The small high school grant is, based on 2.5 million for small districts. And so basically all the districts that are eligible then go into the calculation and then they decide how much to get. The high cost disability grant is 55 million, which everyone in the state believes is not nearly enough. That reimburses us a part of our expenses that we pay over $30,000. So basically, the state's paying us our basic student rate, and then we get a little more for the IEP for disabled students, or people, kids on IEPs. And then if they are high cost, if we spend over 30,000, then we can claim the amount over. But usually the fund doesn't have enough for that, so we usually get about 40 or so percent of the amount over the 30,000. And that's, the special ed director costs go into that formulation of seeing if kids cost over 30,000, 30 special placements, they have, transportation costs get divided into that. So that's also a moving target, we kind of have to estimate how many students you think might be in that group next year. And, when then at the end, it goes down to actual costs, and you get to claim your actual costs, and then they take a portion of that. So this estimate does not show any prior year adjustments, such as the final ADM, changes in local revenue, and state resources. So if we earn more than we've guessed for our taxes or less, those adjustments come out. And we do expect to have a deduction this year, probably around 100,000 from previous year changes. They also will come back and take away or give us the difference between the estimate on the small high school grant and the high cost disability based on their final calculations. So those numbers will change, hopefully not a lot. Today is our budget orientation. Our committee meeting will be Monday, May 18th. Excuse me, we will receive superintendent's budget message, we'll review the proposed 26-27 budget, and we will hear and discuss those comments. Oops, that's all I have for you, unless you guys have more questions.
Got better at it, or I got smarter. I'm gonna write it down.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Well, budget committee, you can standing out if you want, or you can leave, I don't care. It's up to you. Next portion of our meeting is public forum. Individuals who are on site during this portion of the board meeting, members of the public are specifically invited to present items of commendation and or concern. At the discretion of the board chair, further public participation may be allowed at the time specific agenda items are under consideration by the board. Individuals viewing online, we post the upcoming agenda on our website the Friday before regularly scheduled Monday board meetings. This will allow the public to comment prior to school board meeting. Use the tab provided to share your comments for the school board to consider at upcoming meetings. Personal matters may not be discussed in public at the school board meeting. Members of the public who have personal concerns or commendations should share them directly with the superintendent. No comments today? Right. Action items, 5.1, approve the April 20th board meeting minutes. Any questions or comments before we? Oh, all right, any questions?
From April 26th regular board meeting.
It's been moved, all those in favor? Aye. 3 yeses and 1 abstain. Passes. 5.2, personnel action item.
Alright, tonight we've got one hire and one resignation for you, and the hire is recommendation for hiring Chris Hockman for the middle school language arts and social studies position. Chris has actually been with us the last couple of months, so he filled a temporary position from a mid-year resignation, but he brings a Strong instructional experience and strong content background, proven ability to work effectively with students across grade levels. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Secondary Language Arts from Western Oregon University and has prior teaching experience in Roseburg, Springfield, and now Pleasant Hill. Equally important, Chris has already been serving our district this year in a temporary teaching role following a mid-year resignation, and in that capacity has provided me the stability for students and staff during a transition period while demonstrating flexibility, professionalism, and a commitment to student learning. He successfully adapted to teaching in a middle school setting and supporting coursework outside of his primary enrichment area while establishing positive relationships and maintaining constructional continuity. His performance this year, combined with his previous experience and familiarity with our district culture, makes him a strong candidate for permanent employment. So it's recommended that tonight the board of directors approve the personnel action for licensed employee as reflected in this resolution and the addendum presented along with this resolution. The categories tonight are a license hire and a license resignation.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions from anyone? All right, I'll hear motions.
I move to approve the personnel action. Resolution 25-26-135.
And so moved. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. 5.3, approve district funded construction scope to be incorporated into the CMGC process.
So this is part of the CMGC process for the seismic grant that we've got, the Department of Education. I'd like to take just a moment to introduce the project manager for Osland, which is the contractor that we've selected through the CMG process, and so it's Brian Gray. Welcome, Brian. As part of that planning project, we've been working on identifying additional construction elements that are not included in the base guaranteed maximum price, which we're just finishing up with on the project. And they may not be eligible for the SRGP funding, that are operationally related to the gymnasium that would benefit from being completed concurrently with the seismic work. So some of these alternates include interior painting of the areas such as locker rooms, restrooms, offices, and related hallway areas. Flooring, wall-based replacement and support spaces and commons areas. So let's say blue floor there in what we call the cantina. Lighting upgrades in commons and support areas, lighting upgrades in the locker room, lighting upgrades in the main gymnasium. Also includes the barrel ceiling and wall acoustic treatments in the main portion of the gymnasium. Concession flooring and wall base, but also includes the abatement of the flooring as well. Excuse me, concession lighting, redoing the concession casework and some plumbing work, and then also replacing the original door frames and hardware that completed the main part of the gymnasium. Incorporating district funded work into this existing process will reduce duplication, mobilization, and general condition costs. It avoids the need for separate procurement and construction contracts to maintain schedule efficiency and site coordination, but preserve full financial separation between SRGP and the non-SRGP costs, allows completion of improvements while the facility is already under construction. So the CMGC contract structure allows additional scope to be incorporated through amendments and change orders, provided the board authorizes the funding and costs are tracked separately from the SRGP work. So part of getting the guaranteed maximum price, we've included these alternates as well with our subcontractors that Osland has been bid for. So we have a general idea of what these costs are, and they are actually under $400,000. But as we go through the entire process and determining how much of the grant we can actually use, we can see this number go up and down for some of the projects. So for instance, the lighting upgrades is something in the main gym that could possibly be grant funded. If we get to that point in time here, the grant that we may have money developed for, to make sure that we can actually get it done, that I actually have the board approval to spend some money on that as well. So it's recommended tonight that the board of directors accept the alternative projections as presented and move to approve the inclusion of district funded construction scope in the existing CMGC procurement and construction process for the Pleasant Hill High School gymnasium project in an amount not to exceed $400,000, and to authorize the superintendent to execute necessary amendments and change orders consistent with this approval.
Questions?
Are the individual items part bid or the TNM? I don't realize we pay for a grant or not?
We, these are
They are, they're bid prices. Okay. So they're locked in. Okay. And where does this come from the budget? Which fund?
Capital project reserve fund.
Capital project, which is currently account.
Well, we could, I think,
primarily for this year, so this will be also included in the budget that we bring for you guys to approve as well. Yes, because we don't, and depending on when the work is done, and this is based off our auditors as well, we have some in that budget right now that we could pay for some of the bill if it happens, if it were to happen in June. Most of it anticipated to be happening in July, but the new fiscal year budget for that, at least. You see this also in the budget.
There is 700,000 in it right now. We transferred, 1.1 million for this project, and it is getting reimbursed with the time required us to.
But I think it's important to notice, or point out as well, as Sherry says, we budgeted for it. We pay for it and we get reimbursement from the state, so we have to have the funds available to actually pay for it, right?
So 400 type worst case scenario, essentially.
It is, yeah.
And then this all, as far as timeline is, so we can all get done this summer, is the goal.
Correct. Yeah.
Any other questions for me? No. All right, well, your emotions then.
I'll move to approve resolution 2526.136.
Been so moved, all those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. 5.4, approve 2026-27 designation of district officers, clerks, depositories, and contract renewal board.
All right, so getting ready for 26-27 school year, so this is, the RS that requires the governing body to designate at the beginning of each fiscal year, the individuals will all have authorization to act as the district officers, clerks, designate the financial institutions the district uses for the investment of funds, and review the status of and rules adopted by the local public contract review board. So this exhibit designates the following budget officers, clerks of the district, custodians of funds, public contract rules, and OAR chapter grant officer and depositories of funds. So to recommend the board of directors approve the exhibit designating district officers, clerks, and agents, including depositories for district funds, is listed as the attached document for 26-27 fiscal year. So for budget officer, designate superintendent as budget officer of the Pleasantville School District. District clerks designate superintendent of the Pleasantville School District as chief administrative officer clerk for the fiscal year 26-27. Designate Sherry Lombardo as business manager. And then for grant officer, designate superintendent and or business manager as local agency representative, authorize them to execute and file applications for and on behalf of the district and otherwise act as a district representative in all activities related to grants for the fiscal year 26-27. Designate the board of directors as open contract review board, granted authority under the RS 2798.060, and also adopts the current Oregon Attorney General's model public contracts manual stipulated by RS 279A, 279B, C, and OAR 137, Division 46, 47, 48, and 49. And for the investment depositories, designate that the following depositories are hereby approved as official depositories of the Pleasantville School District for the 26-27 fiscal year. Banner Bank and the local government investment pool. Be resolved as superintendent of the business manager as a custodian of funds are authorized to establish accounts and to issue checks against such accounts bearing the original signature of the superintendent or business manager in accordance with the state statute 328.411 and 328.445.
Any questions?
Jim, I assume there's no significant changes to.
There's no changes to any of these tonight.
All right. Motions.
motion, I would just suggest, motion to approve the resolution. Yeah, the exhibit 2526.137.
I so move.
It's been moved. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. 5.5, approve 2026-27 property and liability insurance, workers' compensation insurance, and section 125 benefits.
So for property and casualty insurance, you could designate the property and casualty coverage for education, which is PACE as the district's liability insurance carrier, and designate Lauren Williams of Way Insurance as the agent of record. Workers' compensation insurance would designate Safe Corporation as district workers' compensation carrier, and workers' section 125 benefits plan carrier, and designate American Fidelity Securities as section 125 administrator. So to recommend the board of directors approve the exhibit designated work district property and liability insurance carrier, insurance agent of record, workers' compensation carrier, and the workers' benefit plan carrier for the 26-27 fiscal year.
Thank you. Any questions on that? If not, I'll hear comments. Then so moved, all those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. And our last item, 5.6, approve 2026-27 designation of legal counsel and municipal auditor.
This one requires governing body to designate at the beginning of each fiscal year, individual and or firms who operate with the authorization to act as the district's legal counsel and auditors. So for legal counsel, designate the Hungerford Law Firm as legal counsel for general counsel, labor relations, and special education services for the fiscal year 26-27. Designate the Oregon School Boards Association Policy and Legal Services for the fiscal year 26-27. Designate the law office of Mike Reader as legal counsel for land use and boundary services regarding the Jasper and economic development for the fiscal year 26-27. We've had nothing come up with that lately, but they continue to have them available for benefit of each other, so we want to come back and get that permission. And the municipal auditor would be designated Acuity LLC as official auditor for the fiscal year 26-27. Recommend that the board of directors approve the exhibit designating district agents as listed on the attached documents for the 26-27 fiscal year.
I was actually gonna ask, I was interested to see that still in here. I was gonna ask, like, if that still actually has legs. I know you just said that you haven't heard anything recently, but.
I haven't, I'm not sure where it stopped. The last time I had talked to the developer, he was gonna get back to me, and just never did. Just had to get, understand what's going on in the Springfield area. The sub is pretty busy on a water project, in the Glenwood area. And there's just not a lot of interest, I don't think, from the utility board as far as giving utilities out for that portion yet, so it's been a little just kind of dead in the water.
All right, no other questions on your motions?
Move to approve resolution 25-26.39.
Then so moved, all those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Discussion items, 2026-27 board meeting calendar.
So we discussed the last example of a board meeting calendar, the idea of coming back to a charge meeting and actually working to get work sessions put in. During that time though, just another example idea that I wanted to bring in front of you to take a look at, so get some things to mull over as we work towards putting together next year's calendar. This one is basically the same as the one that we previously brought to you. With the idea, and I don't think I actually got the right one in here.
No.
Is it?
I
So ignore this one, but conceptually what it was, is identifying 4 work sessions and having 3 of the work sessions coincide with our regular quarterly reporting, where Stephanie Lundon will come in and provide you these district data, and then our principals would provide the reports for their scorecards. And so if these work sessions would align, for the most part, they were what happened this year as far as where that reporting took place. So one, I believe it was end of September, beginning of October, one towards the end of January for the mid-year, review in January, beginning of February. And the last one would be in June, after we got all of our data back. And then the fourth one, as far as the work sessions, the board want to do that is one that we could align somewhere in the calendar, maybe towards your goal. So if we had another training goal, for instance, where you want to go to create a company, we could do that in there as well. So just another example, and I will email you, the correct copy as far as some dates.
What do we have to adopt the calendar?
You don't until, I would say, if we had something. If we had something by the end of June, I think it'd be really nice for the public to be able to see what that is. But as long as you are providing ample notice based off the regular meeting laws, before the next meeting comes up, we could do it. For instance, like with this one, we're gonna May 18th as far as the notice. You do it meeting by meeting. Ideally before school started in September, we had that.
All right. Any other business? All right. Work calendar events, 7.1, any changes on that or since last time, guessing not?
I'd like it out, so, but no, there's no, we've got this week, tomorrow, we've got the first day of the ice cream, for the teacher appreciation week. Otherwise, I think we've got everything on the calendar that's coming up, graduation coming up as well.
Oh man, 4 of us with ice cream, that's like the most we've ever had, I think.
It looks like it's gonna be great weather for it too.
That's good.
The fourth grade concert on Thursday.
No. Excellent. All right, and with that, I guess next board meeting is May 18th, right here at 7 p.m. Now we're adjourned.